It's only March and I've used 2 of the possible phones of the year. It's versus time on
Engineer Reacts.
You heard my opening, so I wasn't really expecting to have the S22 show up and actually perform as well as it did. And it did. It was gonna have to be immediately in the ranking of possible phone of 2022. And then I received another phone, the IQOO 9 Pro, and it immediately goes there as well. And it's actually still probably my favorite phone so far this year. Now, I'll go into a little bit of that, but let's go over the intangibles. So right off the bat, you see that the Samsung S22 has a desktop experience, or Samsung DeX. Now, I am showing a clip from Holla at Your Boy, and I recommend that everybody subscribe to his channel and also go through this video with him, because he goes through detail of how to use DeX, and I was like, no reason for me to re-record it when I already have a benchmark right there. And then, if you look at this, when I was going through one of Juan Bagnell's videos on the Samsung S22 Ultra and the S21, I started to realize when he started going through the benchmarking process that just like Holla at Your Boy, he was using the S Pen. So quite extensively, I should say. So that's another intangible that Samsung has. So although it is a niche product because of its price point, it does offer 2 things that are really special. Now, the intangibles with the IQOO 9, really, outside of it being a slab phone, it's a typical slab phone. But they do have one trick up their sleeve, and that is the absolutely unbelievable fingerprint sensor. So I will be the first to say that I believe that fingerprint sensors should be in the power button. And I know that's gonna upset left-handed people because it's gonna benefit most right-handed people. However, as good as the ultrasonic fingerprint sensors that Samsung makes, I have to give it up to Qualcomm. The landing pad, I mean, just take a look at this landing pad. It's pretty impressive. Let's go to gaming. The way I test CPU performance at Engineer Reacts is definitely by trying to tax the CPU with games over an extended period of time. So I'll typically game between 30 something minutes, and I always kind of start the benchmark at a given spot. So I load the game fresh and I just start the game completely over, just so I can see as the game is starting to optimize if I see any quirks with the newer firmware. And I have to say, I have to give both of these phones a stamp of approval. I will point out, if you follow Juan's channel, he just showed some performance potential issues with the regular S line. So I encourage everybody to go into that channel. Pretty sure he will retest it once this update hits his phone. All right, so let's go to cameras. I will say far and away, these are my favorite cameras, absolutely, that Samsung has ever made. So now, please, feel free to go in the comment section, go ham. I know the S21 Ultra is unbelievable, but what I like about these new cameras, or I should say new image processing with some newer sensors, really the main sensor. So when I talk about cameras, I really like the S22 series, and when I focus on it, I look at the main sensor. Now, the telephoto is good in daylight on the Samsung, and I will give special note to the wide angle on the Vivo. Now, I am extremely hard on OEMs as far as the wide angle cameras or the ultra wide. The reason why I get on them is because I believe they go after cheaper hardware, when in my opinion they should have the same main sensor and then just change the lens. That way you don't have any color differences. But I will have to say, even though the Samsung on the S22, they use the same sensor from last year, they just upgraded the main sensor. I have to say the modes that you can do on the new Vivo or the Samsung JN1. So Samsung has kind of gotten a lot of manufacturers to pick up the JN1. It's the one that lets you to do 150 degrees, but you also, it has these other modes where you can actually do like a crystal ball, you can do like a whirlwind, and comes up with different effects. And it's great for someone like me that doesn't use the ultra wide, unless it's like the OnePlus 9 Pro or certain cameras like the Mi 11 Ultra, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I'll use that wide angle. But there's a lot of phones that I just bypass. I just use the main for everything. If I want a wider shot, I just turn off stabilization and put it in a gimbal. Another thing I have to say is these phones really have the ability to soak up light. I am one of the few people that doesn't really like night mode, and I think night mode is great. I use it very sparingly. It's only when I just simply can't see anything. So what I did was I turned off night mode and just wanted to see what the sensors could do in their normal state. So I completely blacked out my lab, which is already black, but I darkened it, and I just had one light on. These are some of the pictures that you see, and I'm not gonna say what these pictures are. I want everybody to kind of make a guess, but I will say, because if someone is looking for shutter lag on these next respective photos, they literally happen on both phones. So both phones exhibited shutter lag. It was something where I was setting up the test. So I could have done a better job on a couple of the photos, making sure I stayed steady. I didn't use burst mode. I didn't use pro mode. This was all what I could see in the normal app that most people that are gonna buy these phones use. Now, circling back, I did a test earlier and I don't think people understood. So I'm just gonna kind of do the test again. So I'm gonna start a speaker test. What I noticed on the S22 Ultra was the fact that when you listen to the speakers, it doesn't quite sound the same, and it's the highs are perfect, but if you're listening to someone with a deep voice on the television and you're casting, let's say, and then you switch to the S22 Ultra, you'll see a big difference, a noticeable difference. Obviously, going from like a TV set of speakers or stereo that someone could be casting to could make a change. So that's something that is going on. So overall, I have to say, I am extremely impressed with these. And I will say, I know that people kind of, they're concerned about possibly picking up a OEM that's not available here in the States, where you just go into Best Buy. And I get that. But if you can snag the global release, these phones typically work on T-Mobile with no issue. And there are people that have used them on AT&T, but I kind of recommend T-Mobile. But the experience is amazing out of these phones. And just take my word for it. If you are seriously considering one of these phones, look at multiple reviews, and I can tell you right now, I'm showing a clip from Gigi. Gigi is what we call the import queen, and she is talking, and the reason why she's trying to, if you watch this clip closely, she's actually trying to hold back a smile. She had just gotten one of the Huawei foldables, so she was extremely excited about it. But subscribe to her channel, ask her questions. She has the Oppo Find N right now, so she really goes into detail on these products as well. So one thing too is, when we look at camera setups, I always send people to Grant. Grant will still go in, like the way I attack these phones is this: is the wide or ultra wide sensor good enough, or does it meet the main sensor? If it doesn't, I just say, hey, go to Grant. Grant has a nice video on the S22 Ultra where he compares it against several phones, but this is one where he's comparing it against the 13 Pro Max. So I just recommend everybody go over there and take a look. He's going to show you night mode, daytime, portrait video, cinematic mode, and you'll even notice, like, when he goes over cinematic mode, it's something that I can't wait till Apple fixes. But I always recommend, if you're going to use cinematic mode, have like a scully cap or something on your head, because it really has an issue, especially with hair. So you can see it between most people's examples of portrait mode or what have you. You can even see it kind of struggling on Grant's example. So my goal here was not really to tell you to go out and buy the S22 Ultra, not really to tell you to go get the IQOO 9 Pro, but I hope that you see that gaming, both of them are top notch. Great video, great photos, extremely efficient devices. And I think, depending on what you're looking for, like if you really are oriented more into business, I would recommend going with the Note. But if you're just like gaming and you just want a really good phone, save a few $100s, the IQOO is a great one. So this was the Engineer, this was the Versus, and with that, we're out.